Hello, and welcome to this digital event of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Principles for Peace initiative. Join us for an exploration of the role that governing institutions can play to build peace. My name is Paddy Torsney, and I'm the IPU Permanent Observer to the United Nations in New York and head of the IPU New York office. I'm also a former Canadian Member of Parliament. I have the great pleasure to co-host this event of the Geneva Peace Week digital series with Hiba Qasas, head of the Secretariat of the Principles for Peace initiative. Hello, Hiba. Parliamentarians play an important role in building sustainable peace. This comes from the uniqueness of their position, as parliamentarians create a vital link between, on the one hand, local and grassroots society, and on the other hand, national and international authorities. Furthermore, as lawmakers, they are instrumental in anchoring new norms. The P4P initiative wishes to consult parliamentarians in its global participatory process and build on their knowledge and experience. Our digital dialogue will center around the role of governing institutions, especially parliaments, in establishing lasting peace, as well as the need to reframe and improve current approaches to peace and peace processes. Hiba, I'm very excited to be moderating this event with you. Can you please tell us more about yourself and our guests?
Thank you very much, Paddy, and it's a real pleasure to co-host this event with you and with the International Parliamentary Union, and also to hear from a distinguished group of parliamentarians from various parts of the world. I'm Hiba Qasas, and I head the Principles for Peace Secretariat hosted here at Interpeace. And our initiative is a global and participatory initiative of over 120 organizations who are supporting the International Commission on Inclusive Peace to rethink and reshape some of the current approach to peace processes and stabilization. As we all know, we face an era of alarming conflict. The current approaches to peace are not necessarily fit for purpose, as we see on display in many countries that are experiencing recurrent conflict. And this is evident in the fact that today we are in a situation where we have 56 active conflicts, which is one of the record highs actually since World War II. We also see this in the fact that peace lasts around 7 years after we've reached an agreement, and almost a third of peace agreements go completely unimplemented. So this persistent increase in violent conflict, and if we can say the poor track record, our collective track record in achieving and realizing peace, has been the key impetus behind the Principles for Peace initiative. And the International Commission on Inclusive Peace is leading a global participatory process to develop a new set of standards and principles for peace that would guide decision makers and international actors and national actors as they are making critical decisions around peace and peace processes. So now to this dialogue and this event, as you said, parliamentarians play a very important role in building sustainable peace. And this comes, of course, from the uniqueness of their position. Parliamentarians create this vital link between the grassroots of a society and its national authority. It is therefore a great pleasure in our dialogue today to be hearing insights from a distinguished group of parliamentarians. We will hear from Bernardo Arévalo de León, a member of the Congress of the Republic of Guatemala and a member of the International Commission on Inclusive Peace. We'll also have the pleasure of hearing from Lieutenant General Roméo Dallaire, a former member of the Senate of Canada and a member of the International Commission on Inclusive Peace. We'll also have the pleasure of hearing from Dzifa Gomashie, a member of the Parliament of Ghana. And also we will be joined by Nicolas Walder, a member of the National Council of Switzerland. And we will also have the pleasure to hear from Cecilia Widegren, a member of Parliament from Sweden and co-rapporteur of the IPU peacebuilding resolution. We asked Bernardo what sustainable peace means and what role do parliamentarians play in this context. Let's hear what Bernardo had to say.
So what do we mean when we talk about shaping sustainable peace? Sustainable peace depends on the capacities a society has to address conflict in non-violent, non-coercive ways. Conflict is an unavoidable fact of social life, there will always be different needs, interests, and visions among society, and these differences constitute tensions that, when coming into expression around concrete decisions, can become conflicts, pitching one sector of society against another. So the question is not whether conflict can be prevented, but how do we ensure that it can be transformed so that by solving it, not only the specific problem is effectively addressed, but that its peaceful and collaborative resolution constitutes by itself a contribution to social cohesion and civic trust. And this transformative capacity is fundamentally about ensuring societies are capable of resolving conflicts by non-coercive, non-violent means. Parliaments are the institution in charge of developing the normative framework, defining the nature of social and political life in any society, and particularly in democratic countries. Through its function of representation, parliaments ensure that the different needs, interests, and views of the different social groups are taken into consideration in the political debate around the norms and regulations society requires. They do so not only as an expression of the political composition that results from an election, but through the development of mechanisms that ensure that Parliament remains open, attentive, and listening to civil society in the process of the political debate. Through its legislative function, parliaments have the responsibility and the opportunity to ensure that norms regulating political, social, and economic life in society are inclusive of the needs and interests of its different social groups, are fair and equitable to all, and foster the collaborative social action that is at the basis of a peaceful society. Through its scrutiny or monitoring function, parliaments ensure that state institutions and officials function fairly and efficiently, following not only the letter, but also the spirit of the legislation, and ensuring it is implemented in a fair and inclusive way.
Bernardo highlighted the essential and positive role of parliaments and parliamentarians, but can their contribution be negative as well? Let's hear what Bernardo had to say about this.
The constructive potential of parliaments as forces that can shape the future of their society comes with a huge responsibility. The capacity to shape social and political life through this realization and demonstration of social values is a potential that can have positive or negative outcomes. What happens when parliaments do not conform with the goals and ideals of a house of debate that represents the different needs and interests of society and conjugates them in fair and equitable normative frameworks? What happens when parliaments belie the principles upon which they were created to serve other interests than the common good? What happens when parliaments demonstrate violent and coercive values, attitudes, and behavior in their operation? What happens when parliaments become spaces that foster polarization, marginalization, exclusion, or hate through its proceedings?
These are very interesting questions. Paddy, based on your experience as a parliamentarian, can you relate to these points?
Absolutely. Bernardo asked some very interesting questions about the role of parliamentarians. He raises the fundamental question of the role of parliaments and their responsibility to contribute to peace. Indeed, there exist examples where parliaments are acting in a way that does not contribute to peace, but instead fosters division and marginalization. So let's hear from 3 parliamentarians what peace entails in their society and legislative bodies. But first, let's discover who they are and where they've come from.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Widegren, and I am the member of the Swedish Parliament and also chair of the IPU Finance Committee. I'm appointed rapporteur on the new resolution on peace building and peace processes. and I'm delighted to join you today and to answer a few questions on our upcoming work with our next resolution.
My name is Dzifa Gomashie, and I am the Member of Parliament for Ketu South in the Volta region in Ghana. And it is humbling to be able to read these briefings on behalf of the Right Honourable Speaker of the Parliament of Ghana, Honourable Alban Sumana Gbagben.
Bonjour. Thank you very much for the invitation, to invite me to participate to this very important meeting. I'm Nicolas Walder, member of the Swiss Parliament for more than 2 years now, member of the lower chamber, and member of the Commission of Foreign Affairs and Commission of Law, and also of the delegation EFTA, European Union, and Francophonie, two very important delegations concerning foreign affairs.
What an impressive lineup. Meanings and notions of peace can vary from one society to another. We therefore wanted to know what our three guests think that peace entails and what notions of peace exist in their respective societies. And here's what they told us.
The notions, understanding, and definition of peace include harmonizing and coordinating measures that ensure conflict prevention, management, resolution, and building sustainable peace, using nonviolent strategies to prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts, and understanding of values of diversity, trust, tolerance, confidence building, negotiation, mediation, dialogue, and reconciliation.
And we are lucky to live in a north part of Europe where we haven't had war in over 100 years. And on the same time, we have had democracy over 100 years now. Equal rights every day is something that we fight for with our constitution, in our daily work in the committees, but of course, for us, the safety for our citizens are the most important basis and essential of the journey as we do as lawmakers. And that's why peace building and peace processes are so natural in our daily work in the Parliament. So we try to keep it up as good as possible inside our country with our neighbors, but of course globally also working there.
The understanding of peace is often too simplistic, even in my country, quite economical sometimes. For many people, it's just the end of hostilities, but not the construction of a lasting and solid peace, bringing together all the actors. For me, peace cannot be sustainable without democracy, without citizen participation, without respect for freedom and human rights. And it cannot be lasting if there is not a justice that is balanced, if there is not a government that can be trusted, if there is no security that serves all the citizens. Unfortunately, for a large number of people, peace is equivalent to ceasefire, which is unfortunately much more complicated than that. But in Switzerland, peace has also another meaning. It is linked with social peace, which is the heart of our policy and in our very central to our country. For decades, labor conditions have been negotiated between labor institution and the patron, the economical federation. And it preserves our country for a long, long time from large social protests. But this social dialogue today is more and more complicated due to globalization, due to the harshening of competition also. But nevertheless, the population is very attached to it and attached to that dialogue, and that's why peace has a special meaning still in our country, and that's maybe why we are trying to bring peace and to help peace in every other country, because we know how nice it is to live in a country where dialogue has the priority towards conflict.
As we just heard, and what we have seen as well in some of the 86 consultations that we've conducted so far in 8 initial countries as part of the Principles for Peace initiatives, what peace means in different societies and what it should deliver varies significantly. But also there are some common threads that we see, and we've heard that from our guests. First, that peace is more than the mere absence of violence. It also entails trust, tolerance, and dialogue. And these are just a few examples of what peace is in terms of more than political peace. And as we heard from Bernardo before, it is parliaments that are at the heart of processes that ensure that the conditions of lasting peace are provided. We spoke about this with Lieutenant General Roméo Dallaire, former senator in Canada and member of the International Commission on Inclusive Peace. And he told us about his experience of parliamentary influence that transcends national borders. Let's hear what he had to say.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity of answering these very interesting questions. It was interesting that in 2005, as I was a senator, the Prime Minister approached me and asked me to go with another senator and an ambassador to look at the problematics of the Darfur situation and what Canada should be doing. Now, I was on the Defense Committee, but I was not in the executive of the government. I was just a senator. And I thought that was extraordinary because I was able to go there with no links to actual formal policy, nor restrictions by formal executive responsibilities, in looking at the problem from a perspective that was not in the direct decision line of the government. However, what I was able to do was able to bring a perspective that did not have the influence of the bureaucrats or the professional government officials, but it gave a sense to the Prime Minister of what I thought people thought, what people should think, and what we should be endeavoring in. And so, to me, one of the major shifts in the whole process of our institutions is to empower, and not by themselves creating that power of grouping, of bringing together parliamentarians, non-executive, and having them either through their committees or as a group, like we created the Genocide Prevention Group in Canada, go into the field. Yes, move beyond the local. May not get many votes now, but the youth are watching, and I truly believe that is a mandate that they would love to see us be involved in, and we can bring an influence outside of the chain of command, if I could use the term, of government to bring a new perspective to the problem.
Wow, that's a terrific example of the multiple roles that parliamentarians can play towards peace through supporting dialogue between countries and in shaping policy. Let's dig deeper into the workings of parliaments, which are complex institutions. I've discussed with Dzifa some of the priorities of the Ghanaian parliament and how peace building forms a part of them.
The biggest political concerns are the economy, youth unemployment, defense and security, and improvement in livelihoods. The prevention of conflict management, resolution, and building sustainable peace are among the political concerns of Ghanaian legislators as they are subsumed under defense and security issues. Ghanaian legislators are concerned about the presence of terrorist groups such as Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and other extremist groups operating in the Sahel, which are considered a threat to the peace of Ghana. Indeed, Ghanaian legislators supported and shaped policy interventions of governments, which culminated in the passage of the National Peace Council Act in 2011. It is Act 818, which established a devolved peace council system right from the national level to the district level to promote peace and related matters. Legislators have often insisted on securing justice for victims of conflicts as the road to achieving peace. This was clearly demonstrated recently through the filing of motions by both sides of the House for investigations into the occurrences of electoral violence since the inception of the Fourth Republic in 1993. The motions are yet to be debated for the adoption of a resolution on them. The concerns of legislators for peace also reflect the character of the average Ghanaian who is peaceful and has the tendency to vote in favor of political parties or personalities who are noted to be peaceful and peace-loving, and vice versa. All the political concerns advanced are shared issues and are matters legislators, including myself, continue to champion in the discharge of our constitutional mandate.
We've also asked Dzifa Gomashie to discuss the different ways, tools, or strategies with which Ghanaian legislators can inform their government policies and obtain shifts in those policies.
The Strategic Plan of Parliament provides for Parliament civil society engagement, which promotes cross-fertilization of ideas with civil society organizations such as think tanks, which is helpful for improving government policies, ensuring buy-in of the civil society organizations in government programs, and making their implementations easy. The Parliament of Ghana shapes government's policies through amendment process during the passage of bills introduced by the government to address societal challenges. Through the instrumentality of question time and statements, as well as its exercise of the power of the purse, Parliament helps to shape public policy for the benefit of the citizenry. Parliament interacts with governing institutions through committee system. During the consideration of bills, identifiable institutions and the general public are consulted for their inputs to enable laws passed by the institution reflects the national interest. Besides, Parliament uses its committee of the whole, which comprises all the members of Parliament, to interact with institutions such as the Electoral Commission, the Security Services, that is the Ghana Police and the others, and the Central Bank of Ghana on issues of public concern. It also uses such platforms to exact accountability from these institutions.
In recent years, Switzerland has supported 17 peace processes and facilitated ceasefires negotiations in 6 countries. We asked Nicolas Walder, a member of the Swiss National Council, about the Swiss policy in the field of peace. Let's hear what he told us.
The peace-building policy for Switzerland is one of our country's top priority. And our parliament, majority of the parliament, really support that objective and support that, but we are not really involved directly in every commitment, but we are, of course, our role is to take general stand on major foreign policy issues. As far as Switzerland's commitment to peace building and mediation is concerned, as I said, a large majority of the parliament favor such an objective and continue pushing to have this policy in the center of our diplomacy. I was recently on a trip with our Foreign Affairs Minister Hiba Qasas on North of Africa and Western Africa, and I had the occasion to talk with different parliamentarians in Algeria, for example, Senegal, or in Mali with the transitional parliament and the transitional council. And I could see how important it is to discuss together and to share experiences and also to cooperate on different foreign affairs issues. In Mali, I could see also the importance of the implication of my country in peace building in a country, a fragile country like Mali. For example, we are supporting the capacity building of parliamentarians in Mali because for them it's very complicated. You know, they're from civilian society. From one day to another, they have to work on the constitution. They have to work on different laws, and for that you need a trainee. You need, as any parliamentarian, you have a couple of years to feel good in your job, and they do not have several years. They have 18 months in order to bring lasting peace and lasting governing bodies in their country. So we need to help them, and that's one of the things that Switzerland is doing.
We see that the Swiss government is very active in peace building and mediation efforts. Nicolas Walder shared with us concretely how can Swiss parliamentarians engage in these peace building dynamics, and what can Swiss Parliament add to the current efforts in this field.
So the Swiss Parliament can participate in different ways. First of all, by defending this policy and by voting the necessary budget for that policy, because it is very important to support by intervening in favor of such steps, of the involvement of the diplomacy of our country in peace building. Because, you know, in our country, like in any country, you have more and more parliamentarians that consider that you know, they judge a policy only through the short-term benefit for the country, and they don't think they are contesting the implication or the investments made on peace building, which are long-term policies. It's also, I think Parliament can also act by engaging in inter-parliamentarian institutional groups. I think international collaboration between parliamentarians is also the just answer to the globalization, because globalization has weakened the role of the national parliaments, and it is today needed to have a counterpower to the executive, to the government, and that counterpower has to be brought by the parliaments. So the parliaments have to work together in order to give also a global answer of the parliament. That, of course, as long as we are lacking a global governing body, which we appeal, but still does not really exist.
That was a strong call by Nicolas Walder for international cooperation between parliamentarians as they work together on common answers globally. The members of parliaments view a peace process really as more than a political process, and their understanding that it's more than a negotiations. We heard this very clearly throughout their interventions, and we share this view. And that's what we're working on as part of the Principles for Peace initiative. It's to broaden the frame of reference and move towards a broader understanding of peace and peace processes. And we believe that parliamentarians are key to this process. What do you think, Paddy?
Absolutely, Hiba. The IPU is moving forward and looking to pull together these experiences from parliaments, from parliamentarians all over the world, and will contribute to the Principles for Peace process. Indeed, the IPU Committee on Peace and Security is planning to draft a resolution on peace building and sustainable peace. And I was delighted to interview one of the co-rapporteurs of this upcoming peace building resolution, Cecilia, Widegren.
My mission as the rapporteur for the IPU is, of course, with enthusiasm, to make a toolbox that any parliament or any member of parliament can use in their daily work as peace builders. Because when everybody is a little more involved, and when we have more stakeholders, lawmakers and members of parliaments and parliamentarians as one part, and together with other stakeholders, of course, that in the daily work will make it more possible for more people to achieve more stability and more peace and security. And that toolbox, the work that we will do now with the resolution, will hopefully be very helpful for everybody. And of course, not depending on where you live or where you're at, but actually a toolbox that anybody could use as lawmaker.
As highlighted by Cecilia, this resolution will offer an opportunity for a much needed exchange between parliamentarians. Let's turn back to Roméo Dallaire. We asked the experienced lawmaker and former force commander in Rwanda what his call to legislative bodies around the world would be in this context. Let's listen to his concrete recommendations.
The energy of the voice of people. Who's really the voice of people? The executive? Or is it all the other parliamentarians in each of our constituencies? Can we not cross constituencies and create groups together of all party to discuss, to inform, to engage, and to participate, and to be available to go beyond the self-interest of the nation and look at the problematics of peace for the world? For there is no conflict in the world today that doesn't have, in one way or another, an impact on you. And so I believe that we can do a number of things, and let me just very rapidly throw them out there as ideas. We could be, talking to the media, local media, that can be picked up and used. We can be talking directly with parliamentarians in the countries that are at risk, that are hurting, and be the voice of people between the two countries that can, in fact, be used in the discussions and ultimately in the solutions. Beyond that, I believe that we can be a leader in prevention of situations in which our governments stumbled into because of the processes that each of our governments are dominated by through the bureaucracy, through the professional officials, and through this absolutely horrific, risk-averse sort of era that we've stumbled into, where statesmanship simply doesn't exist. Well, let's create and nurture it from the bottom up. Thank you very much.
Indeed, this is a very strong message for parliamentarians to work together in bipartisan processes and multi-partisan processes, nationally and internationally, to discuss, inform, and strive toward peace. Parliamentarians can work towards being new kinds of statespeople who are nurtured from the bottom up through increased engagement and constituencies.
Well, thank you, Paddy, and thanks to all our guest speakers and viewers who have been tuning in with us in this event. There's indeed an imperative to move towards a more inclusive and sustainable approach to peace, and we are thrilled to have IPU as a partner in this endeavor and look forward to the engagement with parliamentarians in developing a new frame of reference and principles for peace. We will close with final words from Commissioner Bernardo Arévalo, but please do join our efforts.
We live in an era in which the formality of function often contradicts the goals and principles that underpin the creation of political institutions. In my part of the world, we often speak about formal versus consolidated democracy. In other regions, there are references to Frankenstates, in which formalities such as periodic elections and justice systems do not add up to a real functioning state, and so on. It is good to remember, therefore, that the state is never a finished good, and that functional states and inclusive societies are not created ex nihilo. They are the result of long-term historical processes in which endogenous social forces shape the nature of social interactions in society and that make or break peace. It is up to us, as elected representatives of the people, to ensure that these unfinished political structures that are the states in which we live, independently of the extent of their imperfections, can transcend their limitations and add up to the peaceful communities we know are within our reach, because politics is the art of the possible.